When someone hurts you, the first instinct is often to react emotionally. It's natural to feel pain, anger, sadness, or even a desire to seek justice. But reacting emotionally only gives them power over you. They expect you to break down, to plead for answers, to seek validation from them. They expect you to be caught in an emotional spiral that keeps you attached to the pain they caused. But what if you did the opposite? What if instead of reacting, you detached? What if instead of letting your emotions take over, you took control? That's the real power. Emotional detachment. Emotional detachment does not mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you suppress your feelings or pretend that you're unaffected. It means that you choose not to let those feelings dictate your actions. You acknowledge the pain, but you don't allow it to consume you. You recognize the disappointment, but you don't let it make you bitter. You understand that someone's actions have affected you, but you refuse to let them control your inner world. This is where true strength lies. Not in pretending to be unbothered, but in genuinely rising above the situation without needing to prove anything. When a person hurts you, they often expect a predictable reaction. They anticipate that you will confront them, that you will demand explanations, that you will lash out, that you will let your emotions lead the conversation. This is how they maintain control, by keeping you in a state of reaction. The more you react, the more you play into their hands. Your emotions become fuel for their ego, proof that they still hold power over you. But when you detach emotionally, when you remain calm and composed, you take away their ability to manipulate you. The moment you stop reacting in expected ways, they start to question everything. They wonder why you're not responding the way they thought you would. They wonder if you have something better going on, if you've already moved on, if you found a new sense of confidence they didn't anticipate. Your silence, your composure, your ability to control your emotions, it all sends a message louder than words ever could. They thought they had the upper hand, but now they're left in confusion, trying to figure out why they can't affect you like they used to. Emotional detachment is not about revenge or playing games. It's about shifting the power dynamic back into your hands. It's about recognizing that your energy, your peace, and your emotional stability are far more valuable than any temporary reaction. You are no longer giving them access to your emotions, to your pain, to your vulnerability. Instead, you are reclaiming your personal strength by refusing to engage in a cycle that only drains you. To master emotional detachment, you have to shift your mindset. Instead of focusing on the hurt and betrayal, focus on your response. Ask yourself, what do I gain by reacting? Does it serve me? Does it help me grow? Does it bring me peace? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Reacting impulsively only feeds the negative cycle. It keeps you emotionally invested in a person or situation that does not deserve your energy. But when you choose to detach, when you refuse to give them the reaction they expect, you set yourself free. This does not mean that detachment happens overnight. It's a process. You have to train yourself to pause before reacting. You have to remind yourself that your emotions do not control you, you control them. Every time you feel the urge to respond out of anger or pain, take a step back, breathe. Ask yourself if this reaction benefits you in any way. More often than not, you'll find that the best response is no response at all. People who hurt you thrive on knowing they have an emotional impact on you. They want to see you struggle with the pain they caused. They want to know that they still matter in your world. The moment you detach, you take that satisfaction away from them. And nothing confuses a person more than realizing they no longer have the influence over you that they once did. When you become emotionally detached, you become unpredictable. They can no longer read you. They can no longer manipulate you. They no longer know where they stand in your life. And that uncertainty is what makes them question their own actions. They start wondering if they underestimated you, if they lost something valuable, if you were always stronger than they realized. The power of emotional detachment is not just about confusing the person who hurt you. It's about reclaiming control over your own life. It's about no longer allowing external circumstances to dictate your happiness, your peace, or your self-worth. It's about breaking free from the emotional chains that kept you tied to someone who did not value you the way you deserved. When you master emotional detachment, you no longer seek validation from those who hurt you. You no longer need closure from people who were never capable of giving it. You no longer look for explanations or apologies that may never come. Instead, you stand firm in your own power, knowing that your worth is not dependent on anyone else's actions or opinions. This is where the real transformation begins. Silence is a weapon that most people overlook. When someone hurts you, they expect a reaction, whether it's anger, sadness, or a desperate attempt to seek closure. They anticipate emotional outbursts, long explanations, arguments, or pleading messages. They expect you to try to fix things, to seek clarity, to show them that their actions have deeply affected you. But when you choose silence instead, you disrupt everything they assumed would happen. They don't know what to do with your silence because it leaves them in the dark, forcing them to wonder what's going on in your mind. It creates a sense of uncertainty, and uncertainty is what makes people uncomfortable. Most people operate under the illusion that they have control over how others react to their behavior. When they hurt you, they feel a sense of power because they assume that your emotions are tied to their actions. They think that they can provoke you, manipulate you, and keep you emotionally invested. They expect confrontation because that confrontation gives them validation. It reassures them that they still hold a place in your thoughts. But when you remove that validation by refusing to engage, you strip them of that power. They no longer have the satisfaction of seeing you react, and that absence of reaction forces them into their own thoughts, making them question. Silence forces them to sit with themselves, while a verbal argument allows them to justify their actions or shift blame onto you. Silence leaves them with nothing but their own conscience. When you don't respond, when you don't reach out, when you don't give them any insight into your emotions, they have no choice but to start filling in the blanks on their own. And the mind is powerful. It starts creating scenarios, assumptions and fears that they never had before. They start wondering if you've already moved on, if you never cared as much as they thought, or if you found something better. The longer the silence lasts, the more these thoughts intensify. They might have expected a fight, but instead they are left with uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds discomfort. People often believe that words are the best way to communicate emotions, but silence communicates something far more powerful. When you choose to stay silent after being hurt, it sends a direct message. I will not waste my energy on someone who does not value me. It tells them that you refuse to give them the reaction they anticipated. It tells them that you are in control of yourself, that you are not desperate for their attention, and that you have the strength to walk away without needing an explanation or a resolution. When you engage in arguments or try to force someone to understand your pain, you give them the opportunity to twist the narrative. They can deny, deflect, manipulate, or turn the situation around on you. But when you say nothing, they have no control over the story. They don't know what you're thinking, they don't know how you feel, and they don't know what you will do next. This lack of information makes them uneasy because they can no longer predict your actions. People are comfortable when they can anticipate your behavior. But the moment you become unpredictable, you become a mystery. And mystery is what keeps people intrigued. The strength of silence is that it allows you to maintain your dignity. It prevents you from saying things in the heat of the moment that you may later regret. It keeps you from giving someone the satisfaction of knowing they got under your skin. It stops you from wasting time trying to explain yourself to someone who was never going to listen in the first place. Silence protects your energy. It allows you to step back, assess the situation from a place of clarity, and decide how you truly want to proceed rather than reacting impulsively. There is a reason why the most powerful people in the world understand the value of silence. They know that words can be used against them, but silence cannot be misinterpreted. It leaves room for speculation, and speculation is more powerful than any words you could say. When you stay silent, you create a space where the other person is left questioning their own actions, wondering what you're thinking, and in many cases realizing that they miscalculated their importance in your life. Silence is especially effective when dealing with people who have wronged you because it shifts the focus from them to you. Instead of making them the center of your attention, you redirect that energy toward yourself. You no longer waste time trying to make them see your worth. You simply live in a way that forces them to see it for themselves. They will watch as you grow, as you heal, as you elevate beyond the situation they created. And all of this happens without a single word. Many people believe that they need closure to move on, but closure is often an illusion. The truth is, the only closure you need is knowing that you respected yourself enough to walk away without begging for explanations or apologies. The moment you stop seeking validation from the person who hurt you, you regain control over your emotions. You no longer rely on their words or actions to determine your worth. Silence is the ultimate test of self-restraint. It requires discipline to resist the urge to react, to stay calm in the face of provocation, and to trust that your absence will say more than your presence ever could. It is a statement of strength, confidence, and self-respect. While others are busy wasting energy on conflicts and meaningless conversations, you are conserving your power, allowing yourself to rise above the situation without engaging in unnecessary drama. People who hurt you expect you to chase them for closure. They expect you to ask why, to demand an explanation, to beg for an apology. They assume that their absence will leave you desperate for answers, searching for meaning in their actions, and hoping for some form of reconciliation. They believe that they are important enough to keep you waiting, wondering, and longing for their validation. But the moment you do the opposite, the moment you remove your energy, your presence, and your attention from them, you disrupt everything they thought they knew. Instead of chasing them, you focus on yourself. Instead of seeking answers, you create your own. Instead of waiting for closure, you give it to yourself. And that is what confuses them the most. People thrive on knowing that they have an impact on you. If they hurt you and see that you are still emotionally attached to them, still looking for explanations, still trying to understand why they did what they did, they feel a sense of power. It reassures them that they still occupy space in your mind. They may not always admit it, but knowing that you are struggling over them feeds their ego. It makes them feel significant, even if they treated you poorly. But when you remove yourself from the situation completely, when you make it clear through your actions, not words, that you are no longer invested in them, that's when they begin to question everything. There is nothing more unsettling to someone who expected to see you broken than watching you thrive instead. They thought you would be stuck in a cycle of overthinking, replaying every conversation, trying to decode their behavior. They assumed you would be reaching out, checking up on them, leaving the door open for them to return whenever they pleased. They believed they had control over your emotions. But the moment you shift your focus inward, the moment you start prioritizing yourself, your growth, and your happiness without them, they start to wonder if they ever had that power at all. When you disappear from their world without explanation, without anger, without bitterness, just a quiet, confident detachment, they have no choice but to notice. Silence creates a void, and voids demand to be filled. They will start to wonder why you haven't reacted the way they expected. They will look for signs of your pain, but find none. They will wait for your call, but it never comes. They will check if you are watching their moves, but realize that you are too busy creating your own. That kind of indifference is what truly confuses them, because it forces them to ask themselves the one question they never expected to ask. Did I make a mistake? The absence of your energy forces them to sit with their own thoughts. When you pull away, you take with you the attention, the care, the emotional investment that they once took for granted. People don't always realize the weight of your presence until it's gone. They don't always appreciate the effort you put into them until you stop giving it. And when that happens, they are left with nothing but their own actions, their own choices, and the consequences of both. And the consequences of both, some will realize they lost something valuable. Others will pretend they don't care. But deep down, everyone feels the shift when someone they once had access to is no longer available. By refusing to chase, you take control of the situation. You prove to yourself that you never needed their validation to move forward. You realize that closure isn't something they can give you. It's something you create for yourself. You don't need them to acknowledge their mistakes or apologize to heal. You don't need their explanations to understand your worth. Their actions spoke louder than any words ever could. And once you truly understand that, you free yourself from the need for their approval. It takes strength to walk away without looking back. It takes confidence to trust that you don't need someone who is willing to hurt you. But once you master this mindset, you become untouchable. You no longer allow your emotions to be controlled by someone who didn't value them. You stop placing your happiness in the hands of people who were never capable of protecting it. You shift your focus from external validation to internal fulfillment. This change doesn't happen overnight. It requires discipline. It requires you to unlearn the belief that someone else holds the key to your peace. It requires you to stop seeking closure from people who are never capable of giving it to you. It requires you to recognize that their behavior was never a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their own insecurities, their own issues, and their own inability to handle someone like you. When you walk away with grace and without resentment, you show them that their actions did not break you. You show them that you are capable of rebuilding without them. You show them that your happiness was never dependent on their presence, it was always within you. And when they finally realize that you are no longer waiting for them, no longer hurting over them, no longer affected by them in any way, that is when they truly begin to feel the weight of their loss. The moment you shift your energy from them to yourself, the dynamic changes completely. They expected you to stay stuck in the pain, to dwell on what they did, to keep reliving the hurt over and over. They thought they would remain the center of your thoughts, occupying your mind while you struggled to make sense of everything. But the moment you decide to redirect all that energy toward yourself, toward your healing, your goals, your growth, you break free from their influence. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about truly internalizing the fact that your well-being is more important than seeking validation from someone who disregarded it in the first place. When someone hurts you, they assume you will spend your time replaying the past, dissecting every detail, wondering where things went wrong. They assume that you will make them your focus, whether through sadness, anger, or a desperate need for answers. But when you choose to take that same energy and channel it into something productive, something that benefits you instead of keeping you stuck in a loop of pain, you confuse them in ways they never expected. Because now, instead of them being the reason you suffer, they become the catalyst for your transformation. Energy is powerful. Where you place your focus determines what grows in your life. If you focus on pain, pain multiplies. If you focus on resentment, bitterness consumes you. But if you take the same energy you once gave them, your attention, your thoughts, your emotions, and instead use it to build yourself up, to improve, to elevate, you reclaim your power. They no longer control your emotions, your days, or your nights. They no longer dictate how you feel because you have taken full responsibility for your own healing. People who hurt you expect you to chase, to react, to remain emotionally attached. They rely on your attachment to keep them significant in your life. But when they see you no longer focused on them, when they see you rising, succeeding, thriving, it forces them to question everything. They begin to wonder if they ever truly mattered as much as they thought. They begin to regret taking you for granted because for the first time they see you as someone who was never dependent on them in the first place. This shift doesn't just confuse them, it humbles them. They expect it to have a hold over you, to see you struggle, to witness your pain. But now, instead of finding a broken version of you, they see someone stronger, more confident, more determined than ever. They see someone who has used the pain as fuel instead of allowing it to become a prison. They see someone who didn't just survive the hurt, but used it to evolve into an even better version of themselves. Imagine the confusion that creates. They expected you to be stuck, but instead you are moving forward. They expected you to be broken, but instead you are building. They thought they left you shattered, but instead they see you shining. And that realization stings in a way they never anticipated, because now they are the ones left questioning what they lost. This is why healing in silence is so powerful. When you stop explaining yourself, stop seeking closure, stop trying to prove your worth to someone who failed to see it, and instead focus entirely on your own growth, you send the strongest message possible. You tell them without words that you never needed them to define you. You never needed them to validate you. You never needed them to complete you. You were whole before them, and you are even stronger after them. They will watch as you pour your energy into yourself, into your ambitions, into your happiness. They will see you glowing with a new kind of confidence, a self-assurance that no longer seeks permission to shine. They will witness you stepping into your power, refusing to be a victim of what they did, refusing to let their actions shape your future. And deep down, whether they admit it or not, they will realize that they never truly broke you. They only set you free. Emotional detachment is one of the most powerful tools you can use to confuse someone who expected to control your emotions. When they hurt you, they assumed you would react. They expected to see anger, sadness, desperation, anything that would confirm they still had a grip on your heart and mind. But when you detach, when you become indifferent, when you no longer respond the way they anticipated, it disrupts their entire understanding of the situation. They start questioning whether they ever had the power they believed they did. They begin to wonder if they truly mattered to you as much as they thought. The confusion sets in because they were prepared for emotional turmoil, but instead, they are met with a version of you that is calm, composed, and completely unbothered. People manipulate emotions because it gives them control. If they can make you feel something, whether it's love, pain, guilt, or longing, they still hold a place in your life. They thrive on knowing that their actions affect you, that their words can shake you, that their absence leaves you feeling empty. But the moment you decide to cut that emotional cord, the moment you refuse to let their behavior dictate your peace of mind, the power dynamic shifts entirely. They are left wondering why their actions no longer have an impact, why you are not responding the way they expected, why they suddenly feel irrelevant in your world. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you have prioritized your own well-being above the need for validation from someone who did not respect your feelings in the first place. It means you refuse to waste energy analyzing their motives, replaying conversations, or trying to decode their mixed signals. Instead, you accept things as they are, without resistance, without unnecessary emotional investment. When you reach this level of emotional strength, you are no longer affected by their games, their silence, or their attempts to regain control. You move on, not because you have to, but because you choose to. Nothing confuses someone more than realizing they no longer have the ability to provoke a reaction from you. They might try to test you, to poke at your emotions, to stir up old wounds, just to see if they can still get a rise out of you. But when they are met with a calm, detached response, when they see that you are unaffected, uninterested, and unshaken, they begin to feel powerless. They are forced to face the reality that you have evolved past their influence, that you have taken control of your own emotions, and that nothing they do can disrupt your inner peace. Detachment is not just about ignoring them. It's about mentally and emotionally removing them from the space they once occupied in your life. It's about refusing to engage in unnecessary drama, refusing to give them the reaction they seek, and refusing to let their actions dictate your happiness. It's about choosing yourself over the need to be understood by someone who never truly valued you in the first place. When you detach, you are no longer waiting for closure, explanations, or apologies. You are no longer seeking validation from someone who failed to appreciate you. Instead, you create your own closure, your own peace, and your own freedom. The beauty of detachment is that it forces them to sit with their own actions. When you no longer react, when you no longer argue, when you no longer explain yourself, they are left with nothing but their own behavior to reflect on. They no longer have the comfort of knowing you are still emotionally invested. They no longer have the satisfaction of seeing you hurt. And that realization is what truly unsettles them. Imagine expecting someone to cry over you, to beg for answers, to hold on tightly, and instead they walk away without looking back. Imagine planning to manipulate someone's emotions only to realize they have become completely indifferent. Imagine thinking you have the upper hand only to watch them rise above it all, unaffected, unbothered, and untouchable. That is the power of detachment. It takes away their ability to control the narrative. It forces them to recognize that their presence, their absence, their words, and their silence no longer hold any weight in your life. The moment you detach is the moment you reclaim your freedom. You no longer seek to change them, to fix them, to make them see what they lost. You simply move forward with grace, with strength, and with a sense of peace that can never be disturbed by someone who once tried to break you. They will watch, they will wonder, they will regret. But by then, it will no longer matter, because you will have already moved on to something greater. When you prioritize your own happiness and success, you disrupt the entire dynamic they thought they controlled. They expected you to be stuck in sadness, dwelling on the hurt, questioning what went wrong. They thought you would stay in the pain, replaying their words, their actions, wondering if you should have done something differently. But instead, you do the opposite. You shift your focus inward. You start investing in yourself, your dreams, your goals. You take all that energy you once directed toward them and use it to elevate your life. And when they see that, when they realize that their absence did not break you, but instead fueled your transformation, they are left in disbelief. People who hurt you often assume that they have some kind of lasting power over you. They believe that their actions will keep you emotionally tied to them, whether through anger, sadness, or regret. But the moment they see you thriving without them, living your best life, achieving more, growing stronger, they are forced to face the truth. They never had the control they thought they did. Their words, their silence, their betrayal did not stop you. It propelled you forward. And nothing confuses them more than realizing they were not as significant to your journey as they once believed. When you shift your energy from them to yourself, you become unstoppable. You stop wasting time trying to understand why they did what they did. You stop giving them space in your mind, in your heart, in your life. Instead, you focus on building something greater. You set goals, create new opportunities, surround yourself with people who truly value you. You pour into yourself the love and effort you once gave so freely to someone who didn't appreciate it. And the more you grow, the less they matter. The more you succeed, the smaller they become in your story. Imagine the power in that transformation. Imagine someone who once thought they had the ability to destroy you, now watching as you become more confident, more successful, more fulfilled than ever before. Imagine them realizing that instead of leaving you broken, they unintentionally set you on a path to something far greater. That realization stings in a way they never anticipated, because now they are the ones left wondering what went wrong. They are the ones questioning their decisions. They are the ones looking back, wishing they had treated you differently. Nothing unsettles a person more than seeing you completely unbothered, unaffected, and unshaken by what they did. When they see you smiling, glowing, living life on your own terms, it forces them to question everything. They start wondering if they ever truly mattered. They start regretting taking you for granted. They begin to see that their absence was not a loss for you, but rather a gain. And that realization can be more painful than any words you could ever say to them. The truth is, the best revenge is not anger, not resentment, not trying to make them feel what you felt. The best revenge is indifference. It's showing them without words that their actions did not define you, that their presence was never a requirement for your happiness, that their leaving did not end your story. It only made room for something better. And the more you grow, the more you shine, the more undeniable that truth becomes. This is why focusing on yourself is the ultimate power move. Because while they expected you to crumble, you built yourself up. While they thought they were irreplaceable, you moved on without hesitation. While they assumed you would always look back, you only looked forward. And with every new success, every new achievement, every new moment of happiness, you proved to yourself and to them that you never needed them to be whole. You are always enough, always worthy, always destined for more. They might reach out one day, trying to reconnect, trying to see if they still hold a place in your life. But by then, you will be so far ahead that their presence won't even be a consideration. You will have outgrown them, evolved past them, stepped into a version of yourself that no longer needs to entertain the past. And in that moment, they will finally understand what they lost. Not because you told them, not because you tried to prove it, but because your success, your happiness, your growth made it undeniable.